to the Alpha Artist Podcast, official podcast of digital and creative media works, where each week we take something from pop culture and try to break it down to better understand it. My name is David.
My name is Ben.
And this week, Ben, we're in the middle of our meeting month where we're prepping and psyching ourselves up to deal with BoJack Horseman.
Yeah, that's the only reason this month exists.
I've watched 2 episodes.
Wait, it's out?
Yeah.
I haven't even started.
It came out today.
Oh, okay. I was actually wondering when it came out.
It came out yesterday, and we're going to do it not next week, but the week after, so the last episode of this month.
Yeah.
Next week, we're doing Hotline Miami. I know we said we're doing that this week, but slight change of plans.
Little jokes.
So, Hotline Miami next week, and then the week after, BoJack Season 5. So if you wanted to watch that before our podcast gets started now, they're 20-minute episodes. There's about 13 of them, so I would do a few a day.
More than previous seasons?
About normal.
Yeah, okay.
They fluctuate. One of them has like 20, I think.
All right.
Yeah, so keep an eye out for that. And a quick correction from the book club podcast that I did with Laura.
Shouldn't you make those corrections in the book club episodes?
No, because
I feel like cross-pollinating like this is
the idea is to
disastrous.
The idea is to try and let people know that we do other shows so that they could get.
Oh, okay. This is a plug. Sorry. Continue.
This is called cross-marketing, Ben.
Sorry. Let continue.
Yeah. Brief correction. I said that one of the readings that we looked at during that podcast was that Tolkien looked at Earth-related themes, and I equated Earth as like good, and then like heavens as like powerful. Tolkien's universe, its age is power, and Earth is virtue.
Is advertising one of our podcasts by pointing out its problems the best way to go about it?
I'm told that honesty is the best policy. So
citation needed.
Enterprise agreements is the best policy. But this week we're talking about one of my favorite films of all time,
and not one of my favorite films of all time.
I can't imagine you enjoyed it.
Nope.
But it's in my top 3 high school films ever. It's up there with like Easy A, and I'm trying to think of what, like Mean Girls.
Sky High.
Well, Mean Girls, obviously. Yeah.
High School Musical 2. Not the first one.
The second one is the best High School Musical. Yeah. Because this week we are talking about the meaning of The Edge of 17. This is a 2016 coming-of-age drama comedy written and directed by Kelly Fremon Craig, starring Hailee, Steinfeld, and Woody Harrelson.
Oh, Woody Harrelson's in this film.
Yeah, it's easy to forget. What did you think? Because you hadn't seen this before. I want to get your thoughts before we get into a summary. You didn't do it for you?
No, not really. I mean, I have problems with the film just from a... I don't know. Maybe I'm just not the right kind of... I'm not the target audience.
I will explain why it is a film for me that hits home in so many ways.
I thought parts of it was super, like, I don't know, not cliche, but
like
just...
on the nose?
Not on the nose. Just, speaking of on the nose, I'm currently sick, hence why it sounds like my nose has something on it. Yeah. Just going to point that out.
I don't know if that really carries through as a...
I would say on the nose, just, like, generic.
We'll get to that and
easy
why...
to understand.
We'll get to that and why I
easy
think...
to understand, but not in a good way.
We'll get to that and why I think that that's only true because of how old you are.
Right, okay.
And why I think it's an important film for young people. We'll get to that in a minute. First, let's dive into a quick summary, because we kind of started doing that at the top of our shows, so that if you haven't seen it...
And I doubt anyone has seen this film.
No, it wasn't... Oh, it was really successful at the Sundance Film, whatever, when it came out.
Who the fuck
fucking everyone in the
Sundance Film Festival?
It's like fucking everyone in the cool indie scene.
Yeah, I don't... Like, if you told me that something was popular in the Sundance
500 Days
film.
of Summer started there. So did Don John.
But that's
most of the stuff that...
Yeah, but that's a good film.
The film cold opens on Nadine, a high school junior, going to her teacher, Mr. Bruner, telling him she plans to kill herself. Bruner responds by telling her he only has a certain amount of lunchtime to enjoy peace from a particularly poorly dressed student. Then cut to a montage narrated by Nadine that catalogues the basic beats of her life. Narrated by Nadine that catalogues the basic beats of her life. She describes her older brother Darian, track star, athlete, good-looking, and a bit of a player, and her overly dramatic, image-obsessed mother. Nadine herself is socially awkward and doesn't fit in, managing to only really connect with her father and her only friend Krista. But one night her father suffers a fatal heart attack while out with Nadine getting hamburgers, and Nadine must face the world once again alone.
Cheeseburgers.
Excuse me.
Continue.
Cheeseburgers. Cut to present day, and Nadine at age 17 is still BFFs with Krista. Nadine is sardonic, selfish, and the perfect embodiment of the middle-class suburban brat. She hates her mother, thinks the popular kids are stupid, and feels she doesn't connect with any of her peers. When Nadine's mother goes away for the weekend, Darian throws a pool party, while Nadine and Krista get drunk. After Nadine wakes up on the bathroom floor, she crawls in on Darian and Krista in bed together. Nadine is distraught by this revelation and soon decides she cannot be friends with Krista while the two remain a couple. Nadine spirals. No longer buoyed by her friendship with Krista, she turns to Erwin Kim, a boy in class who has a crush on her. She realizes that even though he grows nervous around her, he's kind and funny. Nadine continues her tailspin and lusts after Nick Mossman, an older student who is a grade A douchebag. That's my opinion. The
Yeah,
script
that is
doesn't
your
apply that.
opinion.
He just looks like a fuckboy. Darian and Krista try and include Nadine in their lives, inviting her to a party. After Nadine has a terrible time, she leaves without telling Krista, ignores her phone, and ends up asking Erwin to hang out at a late-night fair. The night is a series of awkward, strange moments as Erwin misreads Nadine's body language. After leaving on positive terms, the following day, Nadine is confronted with the truth that Darian and Krista are going out for realsies, and Nadine proposes an ultimatum. It's him or me. Krista says she won't choose, and Nadine breaks off their friendship. Meanwhile, at school, Nadine leans on Mr. Brunner to vent. Nadine, increasingly depressed, takes some beta blockers, then goes to Owen's house where they spend the evening swimming in his fancy, heated pool. We then learn that Owen is in fact a great sketcher and makes animated films. He's also incredibly rich. Owen asks Nadine to go to his film festival, and she says yes. The next day, Nadine and her mother have an argument because Nadine doesn't want to get out of the car and confront Krista. After her mother takes her to work instead of school, Nadine explodes at her mother, steals the car keys, and runs. In the fog of her spiral, Nadine writes a very sexually explicit text to Nick, the douchebag, and when she accidentally hits send, she runs to Mr. Brunner for support. Brunner helps her stay calm, advising she slow down, and this is where we catch up with our cold open.
Yeah, this rolls back to the cold open.
So now we're back at the start.
Where she's like, I'm going to kill myself.
Correct.
Cool.
Nadine receives a text from Nick inviting her to hang out. While out socializing and introducing Krista to his friends, Darian receives a call from Mona, where she confesses Nadine is missing. Mona's the mother. Frustrated, Darian and Krista take off in pursuit of Nadine. Meanwhile, during her date with Nick, Nadine is confronted by Nick's repeated sexual advances. Nadine flees, embarrassed and at her lowest, retiring to a donut shop where she calls Mr. Brunner for help. Brunner leaves a tip, takes her to his home, and we learn he has a baby and a loving wife. Darian arrives at Brunner's place, and after an argument, Darian confesses that although his life appears perfect, he's been suffering from the pressure of leading the family since their father's death. He explains he feels trapped and has limited his future by only applying to close colleges, and that the only reprieve he finds is with Krista comes at the cost of destroying Nadine. Nadine and Brunner sit through a long car ride, and now realizing her unselfishness, Nadine must confront Darian back at home. Nadine confesses she's been struggling with hating herself, and the thought of having to live with herself is sometimes too much to handle. The two hug, and their feud ends. The following morning, Nadine heads off to the film festival, reconciling with Krista and Darian on her way out. Nadine texts her mother to say she's safe, and after writing out several abrasive messages, Mona realizes she must be the adult, and just responds with, okay. Owen's film is a story about a green alien who falls in love with the girl, but is rejected. Nadine apologizes to Owen for being a jerk to him, clearly reading the right meaning in the film, and the two reconcile. Owen introduces Nadine to his peers, and Nadine greets the adult world with a smile. Credits.
I hate this film.
Yeah, I mean, it's
explaining
just,
it like that just makes me hate it even more.
Yeah, it was a very David explanation. I mean, it's just the hero's journey beat for beat. Like the narrative itself isn't especially particularly cleverly constructed.
So okay. So this film is like, I get it's sort of a coming of age film. I mean, it is. And I get sort of what the sort of story is presenting. I will give it like sort of my positive reading from this film. Mm-hmm. The one thing I took away from this film that I thought was interesting is that they do a really good a job of you're seeing the film from Nadine's perspective, primarily. Mm-hmm. She's sort of the central focus of most scenes. There are some where it's just Darian and the mother,
but that's more to show the outcome of Nadine's actions.
Yeah,
in like a selfish world.
But I think the film does a good job of sort of, even though it is entirely Nadine's perspective, pretty much every other character, except for the super minor ones, get at least a bit of development that sort of kind of sheds light on their life outside of all this shit that's happening with Nadine. Yeah. So I think a few examples of this is you get a pretty good idea of his name's Erwin?
Owen.
Erwin. Yeah,
Owen.
You get a pretty good idea of Owen as a character. I mean, this just may be because I was basically Owen as a kid when I was younger.
Well, I was basically Nadine, so this will be interesting.
Yeah, like I can associate with Owen pretty strongly in this film.
Maybe that's why I didn't like it. Because she's every fucking kid that would have been mean to you ever.
I don't think it's that. I just... No, we'll get to that.
Okay, we'll get to that. Because I have some notes on that.
Like, I feel like you get a pretty good idea of like what Owen is like when he's not on screen. Mainly just through like the way he sort of interacts especially when like she's calling him, when he's like, you know, he's like sitting on his bed and he like, she calls her, or like he calls her,
Yeah, he
and she
calls
just
her.
like hangs up, and it sort of just like long shots on him just sitting there. He gets the phone back. He's just like, oh, okay, like you get a pretty good idea of like sort of what he's sort of probably doing outside of, I mean, and obviously making the film.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. Like you get a feeling for the vibe that he is by himself, which is why then contrasted with how awkward he is around Nadine, then you feel even worse that she kind of takes advantage of that awkwardness.
Yeah, and even the character who you described as a grade A douchebag, but I would disagree with that assertion.
Nick someone.
Because there is a very, very, very well written line that they just sneak in the film that I feel does a similar thing with his character, where when they're in the car and she's like, oh, why don't we go get a movie so they get to know each other? And he's like, I didn't come out here to get to know you. He throws in the line where he's just like, I should have listened to my friends. And
that was, I was like, yeah.
That blows, like, that just blows his whole character out.
Yeah.
Instead, he's not just, when that scene was happening, I was just like, oh, this guy's just going to be a sex pest.
Yeah. Well, because everything in this film is an inversion of what you expect on the trope, right?
That one line, what it does is it sort of, you can go like, oh, you know, he would have received the message, probably been like,
ooh,
what the fuck? But
his
because he's
friends,
a horny,
yeah, his
because
friends are
he's a
like,
horny,
she's insane.
because
Don't
he's
do
a
it.
horny teenager, he's like, well, sex is sex.
Yes.
So, and so him, and again, his friends. So it's not like his friends were like, you know, if they had sort of done like a thing where they sort of, you know, he's friends with all these druggies and they're all just like seedy, and
they're just like normal kids, right?
he invited them all over to fucking gangbanger or some shit. Look, I'm getting a bit extreme.
No, but like
my mind was thinking that was going to happen.
That's the tropey teenager.
Yeah.
Like that's like the tropey douchebag.
Yeah.
Who like tries to rape the girl, like, you know, that kind
and like
of,
has all these horrible friends who are also horrible.
But like his friends were like looking out for him and were like, hey, that's a crazy, don't.
And he was like pretty kind of like distraught because he was just kind of expecting one. Yeah, like it
makes sense from his
that
perspective.
scene. Yeah, and that whole scene is, even though it's weird and awkward and not super comfortable, it's not super uncomfortable because it's like it's not blatant, just like, oh, she's being raped.
No,
it's more subtle.
Well,
not subtle. No, it's more nuanced.
That's what I like about this film, is it takes all of those tropes in the genre of like coming of age high school films, and it does something with them that makes them more than just such, like, it has these subtle kind of, and it's like these subtle slight spins on stuff that in any other, like, if you watch this in any other context, they would all be like boring tropes where you're like, I've seen this 100 times. But this film does such a good job, I feel, of, like, that's a great example with like Nick, where like that one line gives you so much more information about him that lets you know that scene isn't that. So like another example is Nadine and Erwin when they're in the pool, and Nadine does that they're in that,
like, do you want to have sex?
She says, hey, do you want to have sex? And they flip the trope on its head twice. So then when she says she's kidding, Owen storms out. And you go, oh, this is that scene. This is the other scene from the high school. It's not the fuck scene, it's the other one.
Yeah.
When he realizes, then he plays the You're a Dickhead song, so it flips it again.
Who just wires up a speaker to, on a press of a button, to play that? I thought that was a bit...
No, he went and he fiddled with the remote for a while.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But like that flips the trope twice. When Bruna, the teacher, tells Nadine to go get some yogurt and relax, she immediately asks for money for yogurt. I thought that was really funny because in every other scene, it would montage soft cut to
all of his interactions were incredible because he is like one of the best actors. So I.
But then she actually goes and gets yogurt, which is even funnier.
So all of those examples you've put forward, so those additional examples, they're all interactions with side characters. Here's my point. The side characters, really well developed. They all make sense. Nadine, fucking terrible.
Well, in what sense?
So you mentioned that, like, you know, all these other characters have sort of these trope inversions. She's just a walking trope. Like, it starts the film with her walking in and going like, I'm going to kill myself. And that as a cold open is pretty strong. And it makes you go, what gave her that kind of reaction? And my sort of like initial take from that opening scene was just like, that's like the peak of like a long build. But it's really just the peak of like a spike.
Yes.
Like it comes out of
teen drama. Everything
is really bad teen drama. Like that's such an obvious, like, dumb kind of like, we don't actually care about the problem of teen suicide kind of response.
You didn't think that was undercut by Brunner immediately like making fun of her to let you know that this was not that kind of film? Because he immediately is like...
But you have no tell on him. Like, my take from that was that she's been going to his classroom like for months being like, I'm gonna kill myself, and he's constantly like, no, you're not gonna.
Yeah.
And she like, that was my take of what was gonna happen. It was
okay.
gonna be like over a month she's just like her going there and saying, I'm gonna kill myself, and him being like, and him throwing some banter at her was like how she coped. I don't know, like a weird sort of like I was going in like maybe that's like a weird coping mechanism. She just
Well, that is what
gets
they do,
the shit
right?
kicked in.
Yeah.
She does, like twice.
That's their relationship. Like, it's them.
I don't think it's fleshed out as well as it could be.
I think at some point there's just so much screen time you can have with, because like
Right.
Woody
It's like
Harrelson.
an hour and a half. You could chuck another half hour on this film,
Indie films don't have that much money. What I liked about it.
especially when you have Woody Harrelson, and who was playing the mother. She was also a pretty
I
pretty
haven't
high,
written it down, but
pretty
she's
high cost actor.
There's a few people in this that are quite famous. Yeah, I thought Woody Harrelson's character plays a really good, like, seen it all, kind of sarcastic, wise.
He's playing sort of like a trope, you know.
Yeah, but
He's
then
playing the male teacher trope.
But there's an element of it that, like, in any other film, so like in Easy A, for instance, which is a very similar film, the kind of handsome, older, seen it all male, you know, English history kind of professor type teacher. In that one, he gets cheated on by the girl from Friends who plays Phoebe. I can't remember her name.
She gets cheated on by Phoebe.
Well, he gets cheated on, and like that's
Friends.
That's his plot point, is that he gets cheated on during the film. Whereas in this, Mr. Bruno doesn't have like the only revelation is like Nadine realizes that life is bigger than her because he has a family.
Yeah, but that extends to every character, right?
Yes. So I guess
that's what I like about the film. Is
okay.
that life is, but her as a character, she doesn't really get that perspective.
Can I try?
That's just the perspective of what the film presents because the side characters are written better.
I would argue that okay, I agree. I just think that, and I'll get to this in a second.
Or at least the side characters are more interesting. I think because they don't try to, or like, I mean, I'm not putting words into the director's mouth, but like, they were like, okay, Nadine's the main character, so they kind of trope her up a bit to fill the space. Whereas the side characters, they're able, because they're 20-minute screen time, if that,
it's quick.
they're able to throw in with a trope and then switch it and then back out without any real,
I see.
like, without, like you don't hear anything about Nick post that scene. Like, he just disappears, and you don't really care because he wasn't super pivotal. He was mainly just something for Nadine to bounce off.
Yes,
but they do it in such a good way where you actually believe that he still exists. He's just back at Petmart.
Yeah,
or
he's
wherever.
doing his own shit. Yeah, I know. I understand what you're saying. Let me read you a quote from Mel Campbell about this film and like why I like Nadine as a character.
Okay.
Well, why I like the idea of making her the main character, because I think what she does well is, and this isn't the quote, I'm just saying, like, what I think it does well is, even though she's not very likable, she's every, like, fucking smart, sardonic teenager ever, but she doesn't really learn a lesson, really. Like, she does, she realizes that it's not just her, it's everyone else is having a shitty time as well, and she kind of has that revelation, but I think
that's the main one, yeah.
But there's also an element of the film that's trying to say, even though it's her growing up, everyone else in the film also has to do a bit of growing up, like, especially her mother. Like, I think the film's commentary, and I'll try and tie it back in when we get to, like, the end of the episode, but the film's whole point is, like, we all go through, like, growing up never really ends. Like, her mother has to keep trying to be the adult. Darian has to keep trying to live his own life. Krista has to keep trying to, like, find a way to be an adult, but also have her childhood friend.
I think Krista is probably just the weakest character in this film.
She's really she's a prop for the conflict.
Yeah.
In an action film, she'd be like the James Bond girl that's captured.
Girl.
Yeah. Okay, let me just read this from Mel Campbell, and then I want to see what you think of this.
Okay.
So this is from Mel Campbell's Junkie article, and she says, and I quote, "Our cultural narratives about adolescence share the presumption that it has an expiry date. We are all meant to figure our shit out and emerge as fully formed, well-adjusted adults. Pop culture tends to view men's arrested development as ridiculous and women's as pathetic, but it can take an entire lifetime to actually grow up. Just like the white-winged dove, sometimes a wonderful movie like this makes the years fly away, and we find ourselves right back there on the edge of 17. Her point ultimately being, like, it points out that there are some adults that also need, like, you never stop growing up.
Right.
And there is this, culture does this thing where if you're a grown-up and you haven't got your shit together, it's like totally your fault, and it's, like Nadine's mother in this, especially Nadine believes this about her mother. She's like, well, my mom's the worst because she doesn't have her shit together.
Right.
But the truth is, like, Mona's just trying to cope in any way she can, right? With these boyfriends and the antidepressants, all these things. Like, she's just trying to keep her shit together, and Darian ultimately has to step up and be the adult, but it's crippling his life.
Yeah.
So I think that there's having Nadine as the heart of the film, I don't like Nadine because she's not supposed to like her, but you're supposed to be captivated by her kind of hellion ability to ruin shit around her. She's just like this wrecking ball.
I mean,
because like I don't know.
She's no BoJack.
Well, in another, that's a good example. Actually, no, that's an example in the other direction. So the other direction of this character is you go even more nuanced, right? The reverse of that is like a Buffy or a Juno type, where it's like they have these cool, quirky, like sardonic, quippy, cool dude lines, or you have BoJack, who's like the fucking cripplingly subtle, depressive figure, where there's like a lot of like this is more of a teen film, so it's a bit more accessible.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And I think BoJack's a fall from grace rather than a not even hitting grace in the first place.
Yes, which I mean, but that's a good point. I mean, even with Nadine, like everything she does, ostensibly that's wrong with her, it's just self-sabotage. Like, she kind of ruins everything because she knows that way it can't like fail on its own. Like Nick is a safe crush because she assumes that he'll never accept her advances. Like in her mind, he's like a fantasy boy because she's like, well, he doesn't even know I exist.
Yeah.
So she never tries. Krista is like a safe friend because Krista never asks Nadine to change ever. This is the first time it happens and it ruins, like Nadine completely destroys their friendship.
Yeah.
Hating Darian is safe because it gives her a constant antagonist. Everything is always Darian's fault or always her mom's fault. Like it's a classic like teen bullshit where it's like the world's against me. It's just me,
Yeah, but the solution is ride the wave of terrible decisions you make until you find a cute rich Asian boyfriend who loves you. Because that's what this movie
that's
says.
what I'm planning on doing. Am I doing it wrong?
Is that not how you?
Is that not the
win life?
moral of every story? Well, I think if we're gonna speak to like a moral, which I don't know this film has, like
I don't think it has much.
This doesn't really have a moral, but what it's trying to do is say,
moral of the story is,
well, it's face the consequences of your actions.
Oh, good job.
Because even though Nadine is like overly dramatic about literally everything, she has this. This is why I'm attracted to her as a character. Like as far as the way she's built. In a narrative is she is dramatic and crazy and like really strongly intellectual and has that like quippy kind of like insightful thing. But it's more honest than an expression of normal teen angst. Where like in a Juno or like an Easy A, those characters are very safely quippy, where they're like the I'm not one of the other girls. I drink beer and I eat chili dogs or whatever. Like they're like a kind of, you know what I mean? Whereas Nadine is very much like the fact that, and I'll talk about this in a second because there's a trope that they turn with her that I love. But she has this needling thing she can do with people. She immediately finds their weakness and just goes for it. And, ultimately the film is trying to say that the minute she has to face the consequences of that shitty behavior, so whether it's the text with Nick, or the way she's treated Darian, or the way she's treated her mother, or the way she treats Krista, she completely collapses under the weight of the consequence immediately. Like, she has no resilience for when shit gets real. Because she's built this safe wall of, like, sarcasm and wit and, like...
I agree.
Yeah. Which doesn't hit home for me at all. So she has this speech...
What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's weird. She has a speech at the end, which I might save that quote for the end of the podcast, because I think it wraps everything up in a neat bow. But I wanted to talk about... I've got two metaphors. I can talk about, or at least allegories in the film.
Do I get a pick?
Yeah. Cool. And we can do one or the other or both, depending on how much time we have left. The car as a metaphor, or the one with the gun as a trope. So either the one with the gun or the car.
Wait, the one with the gun?
It's an expression.
Elaborate.
So the one with the gun is...
There were no guns in this film.
No, so the one with the gun is a trope. It's like in a room, it'd be like the Sherlock Holmes or Doctor Who type, where one person has all the power to change a situation, but they choose not to. So the one with the gun trope comes from like old westerns where like one cowboy is the really experienced one who can solve it all, but he's like letting it play out to learn about the situation. Like Sherlock Holmes and Doctor Who.
Let's go with the car. Let's get metaphysical.
Let's get metaphysically. No, your thing was... I should have just... Your thing was better than mine. I'm jealous now. So as a child, Nadine refuses to get out of the car for school, and ultimately it's her father who helps her deal with the outside world and confront like the world and the adult world. Midway through the film, when Nadine hits rock bottom, she refuses to get out of the car at school again, and it's because we see that the crutch she had, which was Krista who helped her deal with the world, is no longer on her side. And she, even to the fact where like she's flipped Krista into being her support network, to being like the person she's avoiding in the world.
Yeah.
Because like she doesn't want to get out of the car because Krista's right there. And it's only in the car with Mr. Bruno outside her house that she actualizes and is able to get out of the car and face her problems. And even
I didn't pick up on that.
And
one.
even with Nick,
Yeah.
He's in a car when he picks her up, and she runs from the car into the outside world. And that's when she is thrown into the adult world, cast adrift, and needs her support network of Mr. Bruno to help her actualize.
I didn't pick up on the car. What about when she steals the car? What's that a metaphor for?
Literally the same thing. So she's using that to run away from the problems. If the mechanism that she had...
she gets in the car.
Yeah, if the mechanism she had previously was this cage she could hide herself in...
My camera has...
Oh, it's fine. I can fix it.
Yeah, as you fix that in post. Welcome to the slightly rotated podcast.
Yeah. But ultimately what that means is that the next day when she goes to Irwin's film festival, she doesn't take the car, she rides her bike. She doesn't need the protection anymore. She's open to the world.
And also she doesn't have a license. Just going to point that out. She doesn't have a license.
Well, we're not nitpicking.
She wouldn't drive though because she doesn't have a license, David.
It's a metaphor!
Is that a metaphor for her not...
No, that's a metaphor for her not having a fucking license, bro.
Well...
But no, it speaks to...
Her not having a license, if we're going to drive this metaphor into the ground, her not having a license would be like her not...
wanting to spend time with Mona.
Because she's always the passenger, right? Mm-hmm. She doesn't want to be the driver because then
there's consequence.
Because being the driver is like
responsibility.
You don't get out of the car as the driver because you're the driver. You get out of the car like last, like when the job's done. Yeah. So she's like, I'm not gonna get a license because I'm never gonna get out of the car.
Yeah, I just think that's
what that means. Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, I don't know if that. I like that reading. Yeah.
No, I didn't pick that up with the car. There's a lot of cars in this film.
There's a lot of stuff going on in this film that isn't super subtle, but is just enough that it's imbued within the plot, but you don't like necessarily notice.
She bikes to Owen's place, and she bikes to... How does she... And so Owen drives her to their first meetup.
Yeah.
Because she's like, I don't have a license.
And she's also looking for protection from Krista and Darian's connection and their relationship because she leaves the party.
When she goes to his house, she bikes.
Yeah, because she's open to him as a person, right?
And then she bikes to the film festival at the end.
And because he helps her.
Metaphor rounded out.
Did it? Yeah. Okay, and then I'll touch on the one with the gun briefly because I want to talk more about the
the car one was a bit.
It's pretty subtle though.
Yeah,
yeah, it's nice. I like that. It's just small stuff where you go, oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
you know,
just hit it and quit it.
Hit it and quit it, baby. Okay, so the one with the gun trope. So in a different context, like think of like Mean Girls. Nadine would probably be like the villain of the movie. She'd be like the bitchy side character who zeroes in on everyone's insecurities and pummels them with it. Like you could imagine in like another teen film, she'd be like the bitchy sidekick who's mean to everybody for no reason.
Right.
And putting her in the spotlight's kind of interesting. Instead, we can see it's a little more complex. She's not necessarily trying, and this is why I like the way that she's handled in this versus like a lot of the other teen films that are very similar, like 10 Things I Hate About You, where the older sister is very mean to everyone. In this, Nadine's not trying to hurt other people, but she's compulsively attracted to like destroying other people. There's kind of two readings that I had on this. I'm curious to hear what you think. I don't have a particular preference. It's just two readings I had.
Sure.
One is she's doing this so others can feel how damaged she is. Like she's trying to make them realize that she's being mean because it's like trying to elicit, like, well, why is she being so mean? Oh, because she needs sympathy. Or she does it because it stops her from having to grow. Like if you can keep everyone at arm's length, that means you don't have to like open up and like you kind of like grow in any way if you're being mean to everyone all the time. But then, you know, what I talked about before, the girl with the gun trope, Nadine is this kind of hellion at dispensing one-liners, but there's a tenderness to it that makes it kind of endearing sometimes, where like her ability to get to the heart of people speaks to how much attention she's paying to other people. So even though she's being incredibly cruel, the fact that she's able to do it means that
she's probably paying attention.
Paying a lot of attention. She cares a lot. So it's like, that's why I don't feel like she's really unkind to anyone. Like she is to her mother when she brings up a dead dad. That's like when she's at rock bottom.
She's pretty mean to a teacher.
But that's a relationship that they share, where that they banter.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and then so
she's mean to her brother.
Yes, but then that's because she treats him as the villain of her life. He's like the antagonist that she's invented.
Right. Okay.
Because it always has to be someone else's problem.
Yeah.
Speaking from personal experience, having been in that position, you super do that. Then there's something else that I wanted to point out that I know that a lot of people in her position do, which this film read so brilliantly, especially in modern films. She reports to be like an old soul.
Oh God!
But
yeah, I nearly fucking spat
I nearly lost my mind. However, she could not be more of a product of a digital age, because to have a teen that is that smart and observant is that is a requirement of the internet age. No one in previous generations can have the like the capacity for the stuff she's doing and the quickness with which she's reacting. She's a product of the internet age.
I think that scene in particular was so perfectly shot because there's two like sort of reactions to that scene, and one of them is entirely encompassed within Nadine's character, which is like if someone is like, I'm also, and like, you know, when you're 12 and you think that you're sort of better than everyone, that sort of like, I am an old soul, I hate the music that we listen to nowadays, I like Metallica. I'm not talking about myself, what are you talking about? But then like everyone else is just the teacher, and it's just like, yeah,
Woody
okay.
Harrelson's like, I don't know.
Yeah, and he plays it so well that it's, yeah, I do like that scene. I think
Have I turned you around a bit on why she's so abrasive in that way?
I mean, yeah, she is abrasive, but that's probably why I don't like her, right? Because like,
I don't know that you're supposed to like her. You're supposed to watch her with like a train wreck. Like, you can't look away.
But it's a train wreck. It's a train wreck that like falls off the tracks for like 10 meters and then just kind of falls back on to the tracks.
Do you remember you remember what it was like being a teen though, where stuff like that feels like the end of the world? Like stuff like things as small as like little things when you're young, like everything feels like it's the biggest thing that's ever happened to you.
I think you might be hitting something because from an outsider perspective, so like if you're maybe, god damn it, so if this was happening to like, I think you got me. So if this is happening, yeah, I think you. Do
you see why I love this film?
I think I've clicked. So when this is happening to you as a human being in the real world, what Nadine did, like that kind of stuff, feels so much more.
It's the only thing that matters.
Yeah, it feels more impactful. But from an outsider perspective, and especially, you know, like 5 to 8, 10 years later,
yeah,
it's just like so fucking dumb and mundane that like you gravitate towards this. Well, I gravitated more towards the side characters, and you just see Nadine as a kind of a dumb fucking, just like doing dumb things. You're like, why? It's like, I hate this character, I hate this film. I guess from that perspective,
yeah, that's why that's why it sucks me in. Is because
when did you see this film? Like for the first time?
I mean,
because like I imagine
it's only 2 years old, so like it must have been
not that long ago. I meant like if you. If you're younger and you're able to kind of like identify in the moment with this film, because like from like my perspective, you know, I've gone through that kind of shit. So like when it wrapped around and got to the end point, I was like, well, that wasn't very hard. Like she didn't really do much. But if you were in this, you know, like in the middle of her arc at that current time, that quick turnaround of like it gets better is probably a bit more uplifting. Feels a bit better. It's like the better times are just around the corner, even though it's not.
But also,
it's all a lie.
Worse
just keeps getting worse.
Everything gets worse. No, that comes back to that quote from Mel Campbell that I read at the start, which is that idea of like the film is trying to say like you never stop growing up.
Yeah.
Even when you are an adult, like this stuff, like okay.
And this film kind of presents an idea that I don't know, like
it's saying
if she's saying, you know, you never grow up.
Yeah.
But then the film just whoop wraps around at the end. Like what is?
Well, the point it's trying to say is
that saying like that's not the growing up, like that's just another stepping stone on the downward steps to fucking Dante's. And is this the second circle?
I think it's a little less dramatic than that. I think
it is as well.
I think it's more trying to say like, you know, Nadine views all of this as the end of the world. It is so dramatic and important to her.
Right.
But what it's trying to say is like when you're an adult, there are things that you do as a grown-up that feel as important, but on a different stage. Where it's like my job, my career, my life partner. What it's trying to say is like
take this film, which is stupid and
it's saying remember when you were 17
and like apply
and everything felt important,
right?
And when you're grown up, everything, but like ultimately none of it matters. It still cycles. And I think that there's a kind of a cold comfort and like I don't know. I like that message because it's not as nihilistic as it could be. Where it could be like. Nothing matters because...
No, it's very not nihilistic at all. Like, it's no Donnie Darko.
No, there's something sweet to this idea of, like, I don't know, I think it's trying to let you know that it's okay to be present in the drama as it's happening.
Yeah.
But the crucial thing is when you step back from it, you realize that the world's not going to end because something goes wrong.
I think, mate, like going from Donnie Darko to this was probably, like, what kind of tripped me up, at least. Because Donnie Darko sort of... It arcs and then it pops and then it just goes, oh. Whereas this one, it arcs and then it goes, oh, the film's over.
It's going, hey, you know what?
And everything's fine. Everything,
generally speaking, everything turns out okay. And that for me is like a lovely little message.
Right.
before we get to like recommendations and stuff, I wanted to read this quote, which is my favorite. It's from Nadine's speech at the end, and this is the bit in the film when I cry normally. I'm not gonna cry now, but like every time I watch this film.
I didn't cry in this film, so maybe I'm just a soulless
It hits
husk.
a lot of personal. No, I don't think so. This for me like hits a lot of personal notes, like the kind of person I used to be and the kind of person I'm trying to be. Like it taps into some stuff that I'm working on, and I think I will always be working on. So for me, it's like something that I really like when I watch this. It makes me feel something. So she has this speech, and I quote, "Look, I wanted to say that I'm sorry for being a bitch tonight, and for the past couple weeks, and the past 17 years before that. I know this isn't any easier for you. I know that. I think some deranged part of me likes thinking I'm the only one with real problems. Like that makes me special. You know, ever since we were little, I would get this feeling like I'm floating outside of my body, looking down at myself. And I hate what I see, how I'm acting the way I sound. And I don't know how to change it. And I'm so scared that the feeling is never going to go away. I'm sorry." And for me, that was how I felt when I was younger. Like, I've been through that, where I'm like, that I've always been terrified of being with myself forever. And there's no way to get over that, which I think this film does. Like, Nadine doesn't wake up and go, "I fixed my self-talk and my personality quirks." She goes, "No, I've realized that you have to progressively change."
And find a cute, rich Asian boy.
Yeah, dog. Well, he's cute. He's kind. He can draw. He's jacked.
He can draw.
He can animate.
He can animate.
He's rich.
Yeah.
He's handsome.
Well, he can draw.
He's rich.
His drawings were pretty good.
Yeah,
He can animate.
He's rich. I just, this is, I want, I don't know. That's why I like this film. And like, I'm glad at least, even if you don't love it, that at least you see why I enjoy it. Because I think that for me, like, yeah, breaking stuff like this down is why it helps me keep learning stuff about myself, even though I'm not 17.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes, even though film isn't supposed to give you like a moral compass, I think it can like bring you back to, as Campbell said, like it can bring you back to feeling like you're 17 and learning something about yourself. And yeah, I just really like this one. I think if you haven't seen it, I'd super recommend it. And it's there, if you can find films like this that make you feel shit and make you realize stuff about yourself, that's what it's all about. And that's why we do this show, and also for the jokes. So have you got any recommendations for this week?
What
have you been doing?
I don't know.
Because you've been sick, so you just
I've been sick, so I've just been lying in bed.
Yeah, I've been playing
My
that.
Ceiling, very entertaining. Can recommend.
10 out of 10.
I picked up Into the Breach on the Switch.
Into the Breach.
It's like it's like a turn-based Pacific Rim game.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like Advanced Wars meets Pacific Rim meets a bit of time travel. It's the kind of game that came out on PC like half a year ago, and I was like, I'm just gonna wait for that to come out on the Switch, because it's the kind of game. It's like it's got like that Darkest Dungeon kind of thing where it's like it works well on a handheld. You just play it in bed and stuff like that.
I like that shit. I've been playing that the PlayStation 4 Spider-Man game all week.
I keep walking past like EB Games and seeing like Spider-Man plus PS4 $450, and it's like, I have $450.
You can borrow mine if you want. I'm nearly done with. I've got like 2 missions left, and I'm 100% it. Right. So I'll 100% it this week. You can borrow mine.
Solved.
Borrow my
Don't
PS4.
have to spend $450. I'll buy a sword instead.
Yeah. Fuck, such a nerd. Yeah, I've been playing that pretty much. BoJack just came out. Catching up on Hotline Miami for next week. I'm trying to finish it. That last level was so hard.
The last of the first one. Are you including the?
We're just doing the first game. I'm not including the epilogue. I'm just.
You're not including the motor. We're not doing motorcycle. Okay.
We'll talk about it in the story, but I can't play that because I'm not good enough to finish.
Yeah, it's very hard.
I'm so close. I spent so long on the hospital level. It fucking killed me. It took me forever to work out the mechanics.
I'd like to point out that probably like a year ago,
I played it in like 3.5 hours.
I played. We got very drunk and I just started playing it.
That was for Dark Souls live stream, and we needed something to do afterwards.
So I just played the entire game off stream, not recorded, from start to finish in about like 2.5 hours.
Impressive, and I just
I just never been able to do that again.
No.
Just start speed running that game.
I feel like that's probably it for recommendations. So next week, if you missed it at the top, we're going to be talking about Hotline Miami.
Yep.
Breaking down the meaning of that. I've done a ton of research. I'm really excited. So check that out. Where can people find us if they wanted to support us in different places?
I don't know. Facebook, probably.
DCMWorks Social. You threw me off is what happened.
YouTube.
YouTube.com/DCMWorks.
Twitter.
Twitter.com.
Twitter.com.
At DCM,
You'll find us.
At DCM_works or just DCM.works, our website.
Patreon.
Patreon.com/DCMworks.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. We're launching our Patreon-only After Artist post show next week. We're going to do it this week, but you'll see.
Is that what it's called now? Post show?
I think the post show, because what I wanted to do...
As in P-O-S-H-O?
No, as in P-O-S-T. Post, as in after show.
Post show.
No, post show.
Okay.
We can do post show.
For
This
sure,
is
meet us
something
at
that
the
we should
post
talk
show.
about off camera. And it's basically where we're going to start trying to live stream the show. My new computer gets here... Well, it was supposed to be this week, but it hasn't
Spooky as
arrived
hell,
yet.
yeah.
So we're going to be live streaming it. It'll be a different angle, and basically the way that we're thinking of doing it is the live stream will be the After Artist podcast, and then the post show where if you're in the chat, you can ask us questions.
They're just bands.
And send us...
Just some bands.
And we just hang out and do some banter, chill with you guys for a bit. And the only way that you can access that is if you see it live, or if you're a Patreon, we'll post that as a separate video afterwards.
Yeah.
So if you want to get the full After Artist with the dual cam, the high quality, you can. It'll come out normally. But if you're a patron, you can get access to those archived post shows. But if you turn up live, you get access to both, because that way you can be part of it and help promote.
At the horrendous time of probably like 4 p.m. Australian, which is like the middle of the night for everyone else.
Schedule.
So,
yeah, look forward
sorry.
to that. So hopefully we'll get that up and running next week. I'm just sorting out the technical aspects of that. We need to have like a different webcam and different mic and stuff, but it's nearly set up. So.
4 p.m. is not the official time.
No,
but that's David's job.
But I'll let you guys know on Twitter. Yep. It'll be the same kind of window each time.
Yeah.
So look forward to that. But if you just wanted to support us, you can subscribe for $3 a month on Patreon. And it's just like a bunch of back content that you can get access to. You get access to videos early. There's polls going up for the book club podcast I've started with Laura, so you can vote on the books that we're going to read each month. It's all kinds of shit. It's all good. It's all gravy. And wherever you're listening to this, if it's on iTunes, if you leave us a review, we will read it out at the top of the next show. And giving us 5 stars does help other people find the show. Now I'm just ramping at this point. And if you leave a comment on the YouTube video, we'll also read that out if you have something that you wanted to say to us, including like corrections. Like a friend of mine pointed that out with the book club podcast. So I want to try and do more of that stuff so that we're a little more reflective on
good job, David's
the
friend.
stuff that we're doing. But otherwise, if you wanted to follow us individually, I'm at DCMIHayPie.
I'm sick. I'm also at Literal Citrus.
And we'll see you guys next week. So you're going to say I'm at 6 Citrus or something.
At literally sick right now.